You're listening to RetRead Podcast. I'm Anna.
I'm Serge, and we're here to talk about books we've read.
Hope you enjoy. Hey, Serge.
Hey, Anna. Welcome to episode 8 of RetRead Podcast. So nice of you to join us here. We're going to be talking about
Fear Street. Haunted.
Dun dun dun. But before we get into that, did you guys notice that we're doing a lot of randocasts recently?
If you haven't, now you know.
So these are like unedited short takes where we just talk about a random thing that we've recently encountered.
I think our latest one was My Side of the Mountain.
But we've also done TV shows and cartoons. I'm sure we'll do all kinds of things. Check it out, guys. I know you've been reading a lot lately. What's on your mind?
So one book I just read, We Are Okay by Nina LaCour.
First of all, we found out about this book from
a booktuber, ProblemsOfABook Nerd.
Kindly pointed out to us that this book was coming out soon and it was kind of interesting, and she sold it. She was like, I'm so excited about this book, been really anticipating it. So I was like, well, that's cool, we should look into it. And so we got it from the library, and it's got a pretty sweet looking cover, and I haven't read it, so why don't you tell me about it?
Basically about a girl named Marin. She's from California, but right now she's going to school in New York, and she's basically cut everyone from her past out of her life, and she's living a pretty solitary existence in her school in New York. I'm pretty sure it's Vassar, even though they don't mention the name of the school, but it's a private liberal arts school in Dutchess County, New York. This is her Christmas break in her first semester, and her best friend from California, Mabel, is going to come for 3 days, and Mabel is basically there to find out what happened to Marin and why she basically has become a recluse, not returning any phone calls or text messages.
Was she abused?
No, so this book goes from the past to the present, and it goes back and forth between the two. So you go from the Christmas break that Mabel comes to visit Marin, and then you go to the past, the summer before school starts. So it's the end of the semester for their senior year, and it's the summer before. Basically, you find out Marin's grandfather dies. Her mother died when she was 3 years old. Her father was never in the picture, so it was always her and her grandfather. And after her grandfather died, her life falls apart, and then she realizes the life she lived with her grandfather wasn't what she thought it was, and it just hurts her at such a deep level that she doesn't think that she can live that life anymore.
You're being really vague here. Are we doing like a spoiler-free type of review?
The book did just come out.
Oh, I see.
And I don't want to spoil it too much.
I see. Okay.
The characters could be deeper, especially Marin. She's in such a dark, empty place that a lot of who she is, you don't really find out, because you just meet a Marin that is trying to discover herself but doesn't want to be discovered in a way, and you meet a younger, more innocent, juvenile Marin, maybe is still trying to find herself in another aspect of her life there. So you basically meet a character who's still finding herself in so many ways that you don't really find out who she is. And that's an interesting type of book to read. I thought it was a well-written book. I give it 4.25 stars out of 5. I do recommend it. My biggest issue is that I did feel it was a little melodramatic for my taste. Also, I mentioned that you don't really find the characters in a way, but it is a very emotional book. It does take you on an emotional journey, and I did tear up at the end.
So, is this a young adult novel?
It is definitely a young adult book. There is no question of who it's written for. It's also a book that features LGBTQ characters, but it doesn't push it. There's no agenda. There are some young adult books where you know that it's trying to send a message and push some sort of agenda. This book is just trying to tell a story with these characters. And there's also a character that's a minority. That's just something that she is. And like I said, a lot of young adult books tend to make it, she is Hispanic, and this book doesn't do that. She's just a character who happens to be Hispanic. And the characters who are LGBTQ, they exist, that's who they are. It's well done.
I guess this is more of a critique of all the YA authors out there who make a big deal out of their diversity plugs in their books. It's ridiculous that Anna has to praise this book for doing what's just like the normal thing, because you guys are making it stand out.
I wouldn't say it's a big thing per se. Some writers do tend to do it, but there are some great YA writers that don't beat you over the head with it. And I just have to say that this is an author who does know how to just make it flow with the book. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having minority characters or LGBTQ characters. It's the fact that when you need to make them a token character, and then you need to point out their differences. And that's...
I totally get the point. And I guess what you're trying to say is, if your book's getting reviewed on RetReads, then you've already crossed a certain threshold, and you've made it. And for all those other books, just check out the Goodreads page and see the reviews where they get trashed. We don't put those on the RetRead podcast, but there's a number of books that get reviewed by Anna that don't make the cut for the podcast.
There was one book I hated so much, I spent 4 hours writing a review.
I remember that day. We're not going to shout it from the rooftops, but those books do exist, and if you want to know what those are, you can mosey over.
You have a book that you think that I might hate, as long as it's shorter than 300 pages, I would take a look at it and review it.
Yeah, hit us up in the comments section.
We're going to talk about Shady Side. There's class struggles in this town.
So, right after the intermission, we're going to be talking about Haunted.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, so let's start off with prediction accuracy.
Let's start by saying we're going to spoil this entire book.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say that both of us predicted that there would definitely be no ghosts in this story. We said it with such vigor.
Yeah, we were wrong.
We were so wrong.
Yeah, leave it to the 7th book in the Fear Street series to buck the trend and finally have some paranormal shit going down.
So, Serge, what were your predictions?
Apparently, according to this outline, I predicted that basically the whole ghost thing was just like a projection, and it was a way to mess with Melissa, and that there would be a robbery, and basically the whole projection was just to attempt to cover up the robbery. There would apparently be a gun as a murder weapon, and a male as the murderer. No ghost. And so I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything except for the gun. Everything except for the gun. Well, there was a robbery, but like everything except for the gun, I was wrong.
Yeah, I also said it'd be burglary related, which...
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah. I said there would be a gun, but then I said we can't have everything be exactly the same. So I said, why don't I say it would be a strangulation? That was completely out of the picture.
Yeah, nobody got strangled.
There was a male. He was not the murderer.
Well,
I mean...
kind of, right? It's weird.
Yeah.
It's complicated. We're trying to award ourselves extra points here, but the fact is, we did not see this one coming.
Nope.
And in fact, so I just finished reading this book. I still don't quite know what to think of it. And I was hoping that our talking about it, we didn't discuss this beforehand at all.
No, you just came down and interrupted my episode of Black Mirror and said, okay, let's record.
Yes, so this is going to be my live reaction to it. My opinion of this book is going to be settled in this conversation with you.
Let's tell everyone what the book is about, a general plot synopsis.
All right, let's launch into the plot synopsis.
All right.
Well, first of all, there's no prologue. So the main character, Melissa...
She thinks she's seeing a ghost in her room. He keeps accusing her of murdering him. She promises him that she'll figure out what's going on, at the same time trying to figure out what the hell to do about this.
Her parents don't believe her. Her dad thinks she's crazy. Her mom thinks she's crazy.
No, her mom thinks she's overtired. Her boyfriend thinks she's crazy. Yeah, she basically needs to go figure out what is going on, if this ghost is real or a figment of her imagination.
Yeah, well, actually, where it starts with is the Fear Street Prowler. There's been news reports of the Fear Street Prowler. She's actually really afraid of the Fear Street Prowler. She thinks, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. And her dad is like, don't worry, I read the news reports too, and I bought this gun.
A pistol that's fully loaded. Right next to his bed.
And so apparently he's an experienced hunter and he knows his way around guns and gun safety or whatever, but leaving a loaded gun is probably not the safest thing, but okay, fine. But the thing is, like, he shows his daughter where it is and he's like, yep, you can use it anytime you feel like. It's not explained in the book that she has any kind of gun experience. She might not be on the whole gun safety thing.
No, I didn't sense any of that missing thing where the girl was experienced hunter from when she was 4 years old.
Right. We're not dealing with, like, somebody who's gonna come in and save the day.
No Annie Oakley, okay?
Yeah. That's basically it. She begins to talk more and more with the ghost, and she tries to make a bargain with him. I'm gonna figure out who actually killed you if you don't...
Kill me,
because he's out for revenge. He wants to kill her right away. And so he's like, okay, I got all the time in the world, because I'm already dead. I've got all the time in the world to kill you, so I'll let you live for now.
Yeah, he tries to kill her a few times.
At first.
It's pretty bad. It's legit terrifying to read. Let's start with the characters.
Sure.
So the main character is Melissa. She has very messy hair.
Yeah.
Can't be tamed.
Yeah, everyone mentions her hair for some reason.
and how skinny she is.
And she's been living on Fear Street for 5 years with her parents.
Who are both lawyers.
And they're pretty rich. Lawyers getting really rich on Fear Street. I'll leave this for the Fear Street mythos discussion. I'm drawing some connections here.
So yeah, her parents are rich. Her dad had a hard life and he just wants to be able to provide for his family. He's really proud of what he's accomplished with his life and he wants to give his daughter everything, including a car for her birthday.
Yeah, when he was growing up, his family couldn't even afford birthday cake for him.
Buy stale birthday cakes from the bakery, the cakes that people wouldn't pick up.
They'd have the wrong name on them.
So he would lie and tell the other kids that, oh, my last name is this, because that was the name on the cake.
It's pretty sad. But now he's doing okay in life, and he actually gets his daughter a brand new Pontiac Firebird for her birthday. Blue.
Is that a good car? I don't know anything about.
I'm not really sure. I think it might be.
Okay. I've heard of it, so must be good.
I think it's got like a nicer engine with more horsepower, perhaps. Didn't do any research.
So she's rich, but the thing is, she's not an asshole rich person like one of her friends.
Yeah, they stress this. Right at the beginning of the book, they let you know that probably her dad has instilled in her to like not...
She just appreciate what she has and understand that other people aren't as lucky.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. She actually chastises her friend who makes fun of a poor kid's clothing.
Yeah, the girl comes in probably wearing thrift store clothing, and I guess it's not in style or whatever the issue was, not fashionable. And the girl just says, being poor is in bad taste. Ugh.
That's stupid. So Melissa really chews her friend out for saying that. She doesn't have to, but she does.
Yeah, because that really is a measure of a person, I feel, that you are able to stand up. Because a lot of people are too scared to stand up to their friends because you don't want to lose that friend, especially as a teenager.
That's true.
We
we see some of that later on in the book. We see somebody that supposedly doesn't agree with what his friend is doing, but he doesn't stand up to it.
Right. So Melissa is a really great character, I feel. I really like that she was one of those people that knew where she was in life and that she knew that it was her parents' money and it was not her hard work that got them where they were. And I like that she told off her friend. But she is part of a long line of female Fear Street protagonists who have really odd boyfriends.
This is like the last book that we just read. The guy comes back from a 2-week vacation. And that's still like 2-week vacation curse. Like, you know, oh, this guy's not gonna be good.
Yeah, we'll get into him.
Yeah.
One of her friends is Della, as you may recall from The Overnight.
Yeah, and this is really sad for Melissa because Della is Melissa's best friend. But we know from The Overnight that Melissa is nowhere near to being Della's best friend.
Yeah, it's that other girl.
Yeah.
Who has the really strict parents.
Probably a number of other people. And then somewhere down the line, you get Melissa. It's a little bit sad. Melissa basically doesn't have close friends, apparently.
Della's still dating Pete.
Yeah, so that's good. Everyone moans and complains about what a prep he is.
They say he's a good guy and that it's a good relationship. So I'm happy for them. It's one of those that worked out well. Della actually has a cousin. So this is where we learn about more of the class divide within Shadyside. So Della's cousin actually lives in the old village. Basically the start of Shadyside, where it began. People here are just poor. The lawns are smaller.
Yeah, that was mentioned. And they have weeds.
Yes, they have weeds in their yard.
Yeah.
And they go to South High School.
Anyway, so that's Melissa.
So can we talk about her creepy boyfriend?
Buddy. Oh my god.
I mean, she describes him several times as being really selfish.
And rapey.
Did she describe him as rapey? I think I described him as rapey.
Neither of you described him as rapey. I described him as rapey.
So you describe him as rapey, and he is. He doesn't take no for an answer, and legitimately almost date rapes her until she really puts her foot down and says, what the hell are you doing? You need to stop right now because I said no.
Yeah, I mean...
And then he gets upset for some reason that she has the gall to say no to him.
He apologizes, but he's angry the whole time.
Yeah, he's upset.
Poor Melissa, she just keeps getting rape attempts. This entire book, everyone's trying to rape this poor girl. It's a scary, scary book. She's constantly running away from
creepy guys
trying to harass her in a not healthy way.
Yeah, aside from being selfish and not understanding what no means, what else did you have for Buddy?
I think he is actually in love with her. He just doesn't express it in a healthy way. He does care for her. I mean, he doesn't believe that there's a ghost in her room, I didn't want to believe it too at first. You gotta give him a pass on that one. He needs to grow up and mature, but I think he does care for her in some way.
Right, but he needs to understand what no means.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. He's not the worst guy.
So we're gonna go into heavy spoilers now. So let's talk about Paul.
Can we talk about Paul the Ghost first? So he's the one we meet first. This is my biggest conflict about this book.
Okay.
And I want you to help me work this out.
Okay.
Because for me, the way the book was written, and I have it marked down here with the notes that I was taking as I was reading the book, by page 49, I already knew that there was a time travel factor going on. And by...
What was page 49? What was the thing on page 49?
The thing on page 49 was, he seemed to be off balance at first, but he quickly got his bearings when she meets Paul, one of the times that she meets him. On page 53... 4 pages later, but I know I didn't kill you, Melissa insisted. It isn't something I'd forget. And I write, Donnie Darko, ? And so at page 53 out of like 160 whatever page book. So for the next 100 pages, I already know what is going to happen.
Right. I think everyone figures it out because you know she didn't murder Paul.
Yeah. So you know that. And then you get that big old introduction of the silver pistol at the beginning of the book. And so around page 50 or so, you already know what's going to happen. And this is my main problem with the book is that I now have to sit through 100 pages of I don't know what.
Well, it's building up the anticipation of, does Melissa become a murderer and what actually happens? Because Paul does say that his memory is fuzzy. He doesn't remember his last name. He doesn't remember what happened. Because you meet her and you're introduced to her as being a really good person. So you need to figure out, along with her, how she could become a murderer, how she could take a life.
Right.
And if she didn't do it, why would he think that she did? So that's what the other 100 or so pages is actually about.
Right.
It's not necessarily a big twist and turn like some of the Fear Street books. It's more of a, this character wouldn't do that, what's going on. It's a lot like some of those procedurals where they show you who the murderer is in the first scene. Like Law & Order Criminal Intent did that a lot. Some episodes of Monk definitely did that, where you already know who the killer is. You already know how he killed the person. And the mystery is having Monk or whatever figure out how that person did it and like that whole thing. So this is sort of like one of those classic procedurals where it's not the who or what. It's
the exact plot of Donnie Darko.
Well, Donnie Darko came after this.
Right, and so that begs the question, did Donnie Darko's creators actually steal this idea? Did they crib off of R.L. Stine's Haunted?
I don't think this is that original an idea, to be honest.
No, I guess not. It's an interesting idea. So when you first meet Paul's ghost, when you first meet him, you don't even know he's a ghost. You get some of his first attempts at killing Melissa. Before he's able to take full corporeal form, he's already trying to kill her. And you could think that that's like his raw survival instinct in his first moments of coming back.
If I kill her, then she won't be able to kill me.
Exactly. And so that's his most raw emotion that actually drives him to come back into the past to prevent his own death. And he really takes a couple of really good cracks at killing her, and he almost does.
Yeah, her beautiful brand new car that her dad got her.
Yeah, he swerves it into the path of a truck. She, I guess, somehow manages to avoid crashing it.
And he tries to push her out her window.
But she manages to grab the sides of the window and not get pushed out. She's got really good reflexes. He's really, really trying to do her in. But she talks to him, and as he follows her around, sees the incident where she defends the poor girl against her friend.
Well, yeah, his biggest gripe against her is that she's rich. He keeps calling her, hey, rich girl, and whenever she says something, he's like, well, you know, even if I do this, it doesn't matter because you're rich, and being rich will fix that. When you talk about that scene with her and her friends.
And at the end, he tells her he saw that, and it made him realize, like, you know, maybe she wasn't what he assumed all rich people were like. He definitely kind of starts to stray from his initial intent here, because I guess he's a little bit good-hearted in the end. Let's talk about Paul.
Let's talk about Living Paul.
Yeah. So Living Paul...
What a creep.
He's not a nice guy.
He tries to rape Melissa a couple of times.
And even his friends... One of his friends, Frankie, is actually somebody that Melissa knows.
He works at the local Stop and Shop.
It's the Shop and Stop, actually.
Shop and Stop, sorry.
Shop and Stop, yeah.
But why would you stop after you shop?
I'm not sure, but it's called the Shop and Stop. Listen, I gotta digress here. This whole Shop and Stop really screws over my Ohio theory, because Stop and Shops are only in the New York, New England area.
Right, but R.L. Stine lives here, so he probably just picked a supermarket he knows. He could have used Kroger, right? But he didn't want to use an actual store, so he had to use something that people would know, but at the same time...
Well, thanks for backing me up, but this book makes it really seem like Shadyside's somewhere in Massachusetts.
Really? I didn't get that.
Well, just based on the shop and stop thing.
But it's called Stop and Shop. It could just be a local Shadyside supermarket.
Shop and stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways...
Yeah, so Frankie is Paul's friend. Melissa knows about him because he delivers groceries for Shop and Stop. She's met him a couple times. So the first time that Paul tries to rape her, he's with a bunch of his friends. They all like circle around her.
They egg each other on.
They're about to
gangbang her.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's disgusting.
And Frankie's there.
And he's sitting on top of a car just watching. And later he says, oh, I think it's gross that they're gonna do that. It's not me. It's not who I am.
I'm not like that. Paul's a nice guy, but sometimes he does these bad things. But he's not that bad, trust me. He's one of those people. He's kind of an enabler.
That Fear Street prowler that's been going around stealing things from people on Fear Street, that's Paul. And he believes that it's easy to get money. Just steal from rich people. They don't notice that it's gone.
Yeah, and then he uses the money to buy himself beer at the local liquor store. Which, by the way, definitely not New York then for Shadyside, because we don't sell beer at liquor stores in New York. So, yeah.
Paul's not very well off. He lives in the Old Village.
The saddest scene in the book, really, to me, is when the book switches to Paul's ghost perspective, and he walks into Paul's house. Paul's room is described, and it's just the most ramshackle room. And you know how, like, a lot of the other Shadyside kids are living. He's not living in a nice place like all of the Shadyside kids we've met so far. And it really sucks. This guy, like, is growing up in this house where he doesn't have a lot of money. He doesn't have a lot of furniture in his room.
He also doesn't have, from what you can infer, his parents aren't really there for him.
They're never home.
Yeah.
They're probably, like, working, like, 2 shifts at the whatever. I mean, who knows? I have no idea what his parents are doing. His room has a bed, a folding chair, and instead of a desk, there's a counter that is, like, built into the wall. He has one light. It's just a simple light bulb. Oh, and a wastebasket. And that's it.
Which is a real far cry from the opulence that is Melissa's house.
Yeah, or for that matter, any Fear Street character we've met so far. Like, the ones living in, like, the regular suburban subdivisions all have a pretty nice sheltered childhood.
Right, but because Paul is haunting Melissa's house, he is really sensing this difference. You see Melissa has this massive birthday party for her 16th birthday.
That's right.
And she gets all these presents.
Yeah.
And she has a live-in housekeeper. And then you just juxtapose that with Paul.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
It is. It's really sad. And then to top it all off, he gets shot at the end. This guy really has a shitty life.
Because Melissa is trying to tell Paul something's going to happen. She really tries to just say, hey, stop doing what you're doing. You don't want, like, something bad to happen to you. And Paul just sees it as rich girl trying to woo him, but saying no, like being difficult.
It's a whole misunderstanding. Basically what you're saying is it's a huge misunderstanding, and it's a paradox, because this misunderstanding would have never happened
had Ghost Paw not gone back to Melissa to harass her about killing him, then she wouldn't have gone to Living Paw to harass him about being a better person, basically. Then Living Paw wouldn't have gone to Melissa's house to go harass her, and then have Ghost Paw basically help Melissa shoot Living Paw.
Which is like, that's the part where we were a little bit trying to give ourselves a little extra credit on the prediction. When you get the final climactic scene, right, Ghost Paul actually knocks the gun out of real Paul's hand towards Melissa, and then she accidentally pulls the trigger and kills real Paul. She's just trying to catch the gun, but she catches the trigger. It's a total paradox. It could be explained with an alternate timeline resolution.
He would have just gone to her house as the Prowler.
He's already attacking different houses on Fear Street, and so he may have eventually targeted her house. And we know that the gun was already there. So maybe. And then you get a loop and then a branching timeline. Although he doesn't say this. R.L. Stine doesn't say this is what happened.
But both timelines basically converge with him dying.
As long as people have thought about time travel, there's been the idea that no matter how many times you go back in time to try to change things, it always ends up being the same. This is one of the persistent theories regarding time travel that's out there. I'm not sure I know of any books that necessarily espouse this theory, but I'm sure they're out there because this seems familiar to me. It seems like this is a pretty common idea that it's very difficult to change the outcome of events, and that
They did in that episode of The X-Files.
Oh, which one?
The one with the waterbed, and Mulder has to go to the bank.
That's right. Eventually, he does change something, right?
It's because he starts remembering what the events are, but the ultimate sacrifice goes to the female in that situation, the bank robber's girlfriend.
Yeah, only one small thing ends up being able to change.
Right.
But the majority of things end up being exactly the same. And that happens oftentimes in a lot of these time travel scenarios where it's very difficult to change the outcome, sometimes impossible. But again, this is all speculation. Nobody's time travel that we know of.
Well, didn't Stephen Hawking throw that party for time travelers?
No one showed up.
He announced it the next day and said, well, I had a party yesterday for time travelers. No one showed up. No time travelers.
Yeah, that was a fun prank. There's a lot to ponder here. This is very interesting. There's none of that chaos theory, butterfly effect. It all just nicely ties up at the end, as far as we know, and settles the plotline back the way it was supposed to be. I guess those are the two different ways of looking at time travel, right? The two competing theories. One theory goes, if you go back in time, you're going to completely mess up the timeline, like all those people did last year by making the Cubs win the World Series. Totally messed up our timeline. Thanks, guys. And then there's the other theory, which is you go back in time and no matter what you try to do, turns out that fate is going to run its course.
No, there's also the ones where you go back, change what you need to do, and everything turns out fine. Like Stargate had that for Mobius, the last episode of season 8. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it.
Like the surgical precision strike, like timeline episodes. Yeah, I guess those happen too. Those stories always feel like such Deus Ex Machina to me, where everything goes exactly to plan, no unintended consequences.
No, General O'Neill gets fish in his pond.
What, you mean like he can't relax anymore? He has to actually gut and clean them?
They had multiple timelines a few times in Stargate.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, no, there are different things of what you can do with different timelines.
I guess I'm just talking about the two different extremes, maybe.
Right, yeah. I mean, Stargate handled it okay. Stargate had a lot of those episodes. You know, TNG had those. DS9 had some time travel stuff. Do you remember Tribbles and Tribulations?
Yes, from TNG, right?
Yeah, from DS9. Cisco's crew had to go back to Kirk's
You made me watch that. I watched that concurrently with TNG, that one episode.
Right.
The Klingons, we don't talk about those days.
Dude, I saw the pictures of the Klingons for Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, the new Star Trek movie?
Star Trek Discovery is the new show.
Oh.
It's coming out next year or later this year.
Wow, moving on.
So there's an actual ghost on Fear Street.
Oh my god. I never thought I'd see the day. I mean, there'd been hints of it.
I was like, how is someone projecting that? Who would be projecting that? Because I was trying to go off your theory.
The whole Scooby-Doo approach.
Yeah, and then I thought, is the housekeeper involved? Are they?
Me too. I was like, it's gotta be the housekeeper. It's the only explanation.
Right? When the presents got ripped up, I'm like, well, the housekeeper wasn't accounted for. She couldn't be in the kitchen the entire time. She must have ripped open the presents.
Right, and I was thinking about it, during the book, sometimes she would call out for Paul, and he wouldn't be there. And I'm like, see? Paul's not there. That must mean he's not a real ghost. I was really trying to convince myself he wasn't a ghost.
I was really surprised that he was actually a ghost.
Yeah, but it's all there for you to see right from the start. It's it's a Donnie Darko time travel scenario. Fear Street is actually apparently a really normal street where wealthy people live in Victorian mansions.
And the street light outside of Melissa's room, it works.
Yeah. She's had no weird experiences. Her whole opinion on all the local news reports is bullshit because she's lived on Fear Street for 5 years and it's fine. There's no problem. By the way, funny thing, Corey's not in this story. The Fear Street conspiracy theorist who's constantly reading all the newspaper stories and quoting stuff about how scary the place is.
Yeah, Corey and Arnie, neither one of them are in this book, but Dave is.
Yeah, Dave, the guy who's chilling, doesn't care. Corey and Arnie were probably oh, we don't want to go there. It's on Fear Street. Oh my god. So You're really starting to see there's like definitely a certain segment here that thinks Fear Street is scary, and then there's a whole nother segment of people that are like, shrug, whatever. People with their heads on straight don't seem to mind Fear Street, and it seems to be fine. Going back to Melissa, like, she says that Della's her best friend. She doesn't even really share any of this with Della. At some point, she thinks to herself, like, maybe I should tell her, maybe I shouldn't. In the end, she ends up not telling her any of what's going on. Probably because her parents laughed at her and her boyfriend doesn't believe her. But part of it could be maybe she realized her and Della aren't as close as maybe she thinks they are. This book is full of little sadnesses.
It is. Because you think if Della were her best friend, Della would say something about her creepy, selfish, crazy, rapey boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Apparently you have some plot holes.
When she's asking people, like, does anyone know some kid who died from our school, a teenager? Every single person goes, no teenager has ever died on Fear Street or whatever from Shadyside. And it's like, I know that in the surprise party,
that's right,
the guy who died was still in Shadyside.
Yep.
So...
Good catch. I did not catch that.
It was just very absurd when everyone was just like, people don't die here. Teenagers don't die. And it's like, excuse me.
Teenagers die. We just read about it a couple months ago. That's an interesting plot hole.
Let's talk about the Fear Street mythos.
Well, they did mention the Simon Fear Mansion, which apparently...
You can see from her window.
Yeah, Melissa can see it. And then, let's talk about numbers a little bit. This might be a stretch, but Paul lives on 34 whatever street. 34. And so we're just going to go back to the numerology we've been doing. And 34 in German, Fear and Dreissig. Going back to fear again with a numeral 4.
And what is Dreissig?
That means 30.
No, but does that have any significance?
Not that I can figure out. It just means 4 and 30.
Well, I can give you something cool for Mandarin.
Okay.
3 and 4. 3 is sun, or sun, which means separated, or separate. And 4 is si, or, si, or si, which means dead. It's sort of interesting because Ghost Paul is there with Living Paul. There's like separate entities of the same person.
Huh.
And then one is dead.
Oh my god.
And one will die.
That's crazy.
Right?
Oh my god, dude, there's like some kind of like weird Sino-Teutonic connection going on over here that I did not foresee, but we're really unraveling it. Props to you, R.L. Stine, for really digging deep on this.
Can we talk about the lawyers on Fear Street?
Yes. These two highfalutin lawyers, do you think they might be corporate lawyers, perhaps? There's a big corporation doing a lot of government contracts one town over. I hear might be hiring lawyers for very expensive salaries.
But if they know what the corporations do, they're lawyers for that, why would they want to buy a house on Fear Street?
Well, it explains why they bought the house on Fear Street, right? They like the antique mansions.
But do you really want to buy a house that's going to be next to what would be mined and full of heavy machinery?
So you're saying my theory is full of shit?
No, I'm just saying that, is there a reason they'd want lawyers to be there for a specific reason?
The lawyers don't have to be there. Lawyers can be anywhere. So,
I mean, maybe they just want their kid to go to a really good school, which we know Shadyside High.
Shadyside High is really good, but there's also other areas. You could get a nice house in another area of town. Obviously, it wouldn't be like the Victorian style or whatever, and
or
have
maybe,
like live-in like servant quarters.
Maybe they just don't know this aspect of what the corporation's doing. Yeah.
Maybe they're kept in the dark about
Yeah.
it. Either way, they don't seem to be aware of any creepy goings-on Fear Street whatsoever.
Except the fact there's a prowler.
Yeah, but that's just not anything unnatural, and it ends up just being like an angry kid.
Doesn't where their housekeeper go validate your Ohio theory? Doesn't she go to Cincinnati to visit her brother?
I didn't catch the housekeeper thing. I wanted to point this out to myself as if this was gonna prove my prediction. On page 65, Buddy says, "There's no such thing as ghosts, even on Fear Street."
Do you think if it did not happen on Fear Street, he would have come back?
Oh, that's an interesting thing. Because he died on Fear Street, he got made into a ghost, and that's what triggered the time loop. Or, think about it this way, maybe he wasn't a ghost at all. Maybe he was just phasing in and out of reality as some kind of alternate copy of himself, right? We can think about this like as a purely sci-fi phenomenon rather than a...
paranormal?
Exactly. Maybe this all has to do with...
the weird glowing rhinestones.
Exactly.
With the blue clay.
That's right. So something could be going on here. This could be the real reason behind this. The weird energy vortex around Fear Street. It's keeping the birds away, quote quote unquote, that could have actually caught this kid in a weird time loop where the last moments of his life are stretched out into the few weeks before his life ended, and he keeps phasing in and out of reality. It's an interesting thought. So, 90s things.
And Melissa's dad comes in before her birthday and says, I've got your birthday gift. Do you want it? She's trying to figure out, like, what could dad have gotten her? She's like, I'd be really happy with a new Walkman and some CDs.
Yep.
I think now people would just want those iTunes cards.
Microfilm comes up again.
So Melissa wants to figure out who this Paul person is and how he died, because she still thinks it happened in the past.
Right. She still thinks Paul is dead.
So she has to go to the library and look through microfilm for all the local newspapers. I think they actually go through the Shadyside Courier in this book, which is different because it was the Shadyside Gazette in the previous books, wasn't
Right.
it? She can't find anything there. And the lack of social media. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, because she could have just looked up Paul on Facebook. She would have found the guy. I mean, no matter how poor you are, you're still going to have a Facebook account at this point in time. So.
Yeah, because even if you don't have a computer at home, you have a computer at school.
Probably would have had a computer at home anyway, even if he was poor. You can get one nowadays.
Depending on how poor you are, I don't think so.
It's not that tough. I mean, okay, fine. If you're like a total dweeb like that one guy from 3 books ago who hung up on the prank callers.
Henry Ravenclaw?
Yeah, Henry Ravenclaw would have been able to figure out a way to computer even if he was poor in this day and age, because you just find these things at yard sales for like $10.
Paul was not the type of person to do that.
Right.
I mean, he might have stolen one, to be fair.
Or you don't even need a computer. You can get a phone.
Right.
And have a social network account. So it's fine. Yeah, a lot of 90s things here. That's that.
Well, what did you think of this book?
Oh, man.
Have you talked your way through it?
Yeah, so, okay, this book is interesting. This is the most thought-provoking book of the Fear Street series so far, I think. It really doesn't benefit from R.L. Stine's writing style. When I say writing style, I don't mean the way he writes the book. The way he crafts words is fine. The way that the words are put down on the paper, I have no problem with it. He's a good writer, actually. What I'm talking about here is the way he writes the book, where he sits down and just writes it.
He writes a Fear Street book in 10 days.
This book needed a second draft. Mr. R.L. Stine, this book really deserved a second draft. At least 50 more pages just to flesh it out a little bit.
What would you have fleshed out?
It's far from me to say. I'm not a writer. There's just something slightly lacking here. Part of it was the fact that I had to go into this review thinking, why did I spend the last 100 pages of like 160 pages already kind of knowing what was going to happen?
Well, I already told you. It's like a procedural that lets you know
Right.
beforehand.
So there's probably a second revision of this would have handled that to the point where I didn't feel conflicted about it. I would have felt, yes, this is how the book was meant to be. The book didn't feel like this is how it was meant to be. It felt like I knew something I wasn't supposed to know when I was reading it. And this might be because I've seen Donnie Darko, which came out after this book was published, and in that case, maybe it's not R.L. Stine's fault. I already saw the movie that was exactly this plot, and so that kind of spoiled the book for me a little bit. And so I feel like a little fleshing out and a little bit of a second draft might have really, really helped out. That's kind of where I'm going with this. What did you think about the book?
I liked it more than the last one, Sleepwalker.
Yeah, that one was not the greatest. Didn't I give it 1 star?
I don't remember what you gave.
Yeah.
I haven't edited that yet.
If I didn't, then it's 1 star now. Officially give it 1 star.
I thought it was... I did like it. I did like that he finally went with something supernatural.
Instead of just teasing us. So many supernatural teases.
Yeah. So it was nice that he did finally just bite the bullet and give us a ghost on Fear Street. Something supernatural, something different. It wasn't, a crazy teenager who just needed something.
Or was it? Because nobody saw the ghosts except for her.
She was a pretty reliable narrator. Unreliable narrators, I would agree with you, but she was a very reliable narrator. So yeah, I did like that it was supernatural. Unlike you, I did think that I was supposed to know that information. I was just curious as to how it happened in the end and what was going to happen. I thought that there was a chance that maybe she would be able to break the time loop type thing. I was hoping for that near the end. I was like, oh, maybe she won't have to kill Paul, or maybe someone else will kill Paul, or I thought maybe the ghost would end up killing himself. I did go through that, so I guess I didn't have that negative thing that you had.
I mean, obviously those thoughts also crossed my mind as well.
I give it 3
silver pistols.
Loaded silver pistols out of 5. And by the way, all my Fear Street ratings are on the Fear Street scale. I don't put it on my normal book scale. It wouldn't do very well on that scale.
Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna give this book a solid 2 silver loaded pistols. As I mentioned previously, this is on my normal book scale. Maybe even like 2.4. I just want to say this is like a pretty decent book so far, but it still rounds down to 2. So really it's just 2. And
yeah, mine is a 2.5 rounded up to 3.
I like this book, but I also like some other Fear Street books. Surprise Party was pretty cool. Overnight was pretty cool.
I thought Missing was slightly better.
Missing was nice. This one is whatever, it was cool. Halloween Party.
Yeah, that's the next book. There is going to be an uninvited guest at this Halloween party on Fear Street.
Well, it makes sense that they're gonna have a Halloween party on Fear Street. And also, can I just cheer for the fact that the timeline is finally moving past this summer?
Right? It went backwards. We had 2 books where school already started, and then we went back to summer before.
The summer of 1990 is never gonna freaking end in this series until now. Finally, we're moving on past the summer of 1990.
We're looking at the original 1990s cover. I do have to say that we did get a reprint version that looks really, really boring.
Yeah, so the reprint version, I'm just going to tell you. First of all, the little by note, all it says is RSVP if you dare, which is boring.
And then there's a jack-o'-lantern.
It's just a normal freaking jack-o'-lantern with some lightning in the background.
I've seen scarier jack-o'-lanterns in real life, but I am excited to see what kind of up-to-date references that they made in 2006.
So we're really sorry. We're not going to be able to do the 90s things segment.
But I think if there is something egregiously, I bet this was updated. I think we'll take note of that.
Okay. Well, anyway, but if you're a fan of the 90s things thing, we're going to try to like do a little aughts thing for you, I guess. We'll do our best. We'll see what we can do there.
So judging by the 90s cover,
which is a lot more descriptive, there is somebody dressed in... So she's dressed in her Halloween costume. It looks like maybe she's Snow White or I don't know. She's dressed in some kind of princess costume because she's got like a red dress and a white cape, right? So that's definitely a princess costume.
There's a floating jack-o'-lantern right by her face.
It looks like she might be running because her cape is fluttering behind her, and the jack-o'-lantern looks like is literally chasing her through the cemetery.
Yep, it's definitely Fear Street Cemetery.
She's running away from this jack-o'-lantern. She's got like glowing light beams like sticking out. So the problem with predictions at this point is now all bets are off, because apparently you can have a floating jack-o'-lantern on Fear Street, because apparently ghosts can exist and supernatural stuff can happen. All the rules that we've been playing by, the whole playbook just got thrown right out the window, and so now I have no idea.
Go, R.L. Stine, you go.
Yeah, you've really thrown us for a loop at this point. I really struggled to come up with a prediction. So
what's the plot? Obviously the plot is there's going to be a Halloween party on Fear Street.
No shit.
There's going to be an uninvited guest to this party, and this girl on the cover is going to be at this party.
I bet it's like someone who... Okay, so my prediction, I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to say this is a girl we've already encountered somewhere.
As a main character, or?
No, not as a main character. I mean, I'm not going to say, okay, I'm not going to say whether a main character or not, but I'm going to say her name has been mentioned in a Fear Street book prior to this. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. First of all, because there's been like a lot of freaking books already, and I bet it's time for a return appearance from somebody. Secondly, I'm going to say that the jack-o'-lantern thing is fake. It is not a real jack-o'-lantern ghost. No way, no how. Obviously, murder weapon. So I'm just gonna go with... We've been going for strangulation a lot and just missing. So strangulation, male.
I'm gonna say it's a new character that we haven't met yet. And I'm gonna assume that she has a boyfriend who's crappy.
Alright, like the last 2 books?
It's a pretty safe bet in this series, apparently. I don't know about the jack-o'-lantern.
It looks really wacky.
I would assume if floating jack-o'-lanterns on Fear Street were a thing, it would be a thing that they would mention.
Right.
Like, Corey wouldn't just be talking about the massive dog-sized gerbils. He would talk about the floating jack-o'-lanterns. I will agree that the floating jack-o'-lanterns are not floating pumpkins. Like, they're not floating on their own volition. Murder weapon? I'll say a knife. Because someone has to carve that jack-o'-lantern.
That's a good call. Hey, that's actually pretty smart.
And I'll say this was kind of a female, but let's just go with male again.
Yeah, you got a 50-50 shot. Just keep calling male, and we'll be right eventually.
I called female once, I think, for another book or something, or you might have, and it was completely wrong, because it's been male the entire time.
Pretty much.
So,
yeah.
I'm gonna go with male.
Well, except for this last book where
I mean,
Melissa shoots the fuck out of Paul.
She did not purposefully shoot him.
Yeah, but she pulled that trigger.
She wasn't a murderer, though. She didn't commit murder.
She didn't seem to think that she committed murder because she was very calm and collected when Buddy came to her door. She was like, will you help me clean up this mess?
She called the police.
Well, yeah, after they made out a little bit.
They did not make out a little bit. Not like that. You creep.
Anyways,
knife, male, not actually a jack-o'-lantern monster.
All right.
I think that's...
Okay, our predictions are set.
Yep.
Locked up. So, all right, guys. This concludes our 8th episode. Thank you for sticking with us for so long. We got a lot more Fear Street books to come. We'll see you next time.
When we review Fear Street, Halloween Party. And keep an eye out for any randocasts. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to another thrilling episode of RetRead Podcast.
If you like what you hear, give us a shout out.
If not, let us know why in the comments.
Don't forget to rate, review, comment, share, like, and subscribe.
You can follow us at RetRead Podcast on Twitter and Facebook.
Or send suggestions or fan mail to red.read.podcast@gmail.com.
Until next time.
Peace!